Good afternoon, Washington County. Good afternoon, good evening. Washington County Quorum Court is called to session. We'll go ahead and start. Go ahead, Justice Bowman. Would you go ahead and lead us with a pledge and prayer?
Lord, we come before you tonight, realizing we have a great deal of responsibility, and we want to serve you well and serve this county well. And just ask you for guidance, that we might choose wisely in all the decisions we make tonight. Just thank you for the opportunity to serve. Help us now as we go through this process. We all ask it all in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, it looks like we have a pretty full agenda tonight. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. Adoption of the agenda has been moved and properly second. All in favor? Those opposed? J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. I would move that we suspend the rules and read all ordinances and resolutions by title only.
It's been moved by J.P. Madison, seconded by J.P. Pond, to suspend the rules and read by title only for ordinances as well as the resolutions. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? No. All right. At this point, we have citizen comment time where the public can come and visit with us, talk about anything that they wish to visit with in regard to the county. Please. You have 3 minutes. Please come and share who you are.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Marty Slaughter. I live in JP District 7, and my neighbors and I on Greenboro Road and Draper Road, which are a couple of dirt roads off Highway 16.
Mr. Slaughter, if you want to sit down, go ahead.
Oh, sure.
Sure.
Okay. Sorry, I'm a high school teacher, so I'm used to standing in front of people. So my neighbors and I on Draper Road and Greenboro Road, it's a dirt road off of Highway 16, we're a little dismayed that they started a rental truck business down the road from us. And it's one of the most dangerous turnoffs from the highway probably in the county. And we got 26-foot trucks, 16-foot trucks. On the conditional use permit application, they said they would have 6 to 8 vehicles. They routinely have 12. And I don't think the 15 neighbors that we have spoken with, I don't think any of us are against anybody earning a living, but we do think that the location is not congruous with the country living that we're all doing out there on a dirt road, kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And we were a little shocked that they could just start up the business without doing due diligence and so forth. And they applied for a temporary use permit that says they can use it for no more than 15 consecutive days. And they got 4 of those and used them all back to back, so that they're running this business for 60 days without any opportunity for comment from the neighbors and so forth. And so I was deputed by my fellow residents to come just to share that with the group. And I thank you for your time and your service.
Thank you, Mr. Slaughter.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Public comments?
Thank you, Judge. My name's Jim Lukens. I live out near Greenland, and I'm commenting on the event center that's being considered on the agenda tonight. It's the event center that the Quorum Court denied the conditional use permit on. And I just want to say I still think that you were right in that decision, and that the event center on the size of property it's on and as close to our property boundary as it is will impair our enjoyment of our property, as is part of the ordinance under which the conditional use permit was granted. And in addition, having a retail business in our residential and agricultural area will change the nature of the community as well. I regret that I was as naive as I was when this whole permitting process was started. First, naive about the role that the planning staff played. I took the zoning, agricultural and residential zoning, to be very important, and my observation was that the planning staff seemed to feel that it was their responsibility to find any way that they could to allow conditional use in that zone. I was also very naive when the decision of the Quorum Court was then taken to Circuit Court about that process, and not having any legal background. A neighbor and I visited with Mr. Lester at that time, say, okay, what's this process going to be like? And he was very gracious in visiting with us and told us that when the issue would come to court, before the issue came to court, he'd want to visit with all the neighbors and ask if we would facilitate that, and that he'd prepare certain neighbors for testimony at trial when that did come to trial. Of course, it never came to trial. This was the summary judgment, but in the process, it appeared to me that Mr. Lester did change his strategy, and for some reason, my observation of your decisions individually as well as collectively was that it was very reasoned, very thoughtful, and nothing arbitrary, capricious, or unreasonable about your decisions. And I was sorry that I know the judge had to make decisions based on the evidence that was in front of him. And I was disappointed, sorry that your considerations, the reasons that you voted as you did, were not represented in the materials that were placed in front of the judge.
All right, Mr. Lucan, thank you. Thank you very much. Any other public comments?
Made a couple of notes. This won't take long, I promise. Ron Wood, South Schaefer Road. First off, thank you, members of the Quorum Court, for all your time and effort you've expended on this. We truly appreciate you. And thank you for serving the community and making tough decisions when necessary. We also thank you for trying to protect the integrity of our South Schaefer Road neighborhood and our quality of life. While I wish you would appeal the judge's decision because of the disturbing precedent I think this case appears to set, I understand it is ultimately your choice, and the residents of South Schaefer Road are not parties to this lawsuit. That being said, I would urge you to consider your future legal representation for this reason. If the attorney representing you does not vigorously defend your positions and interests, your legislative power as our elected representatives will have been usurped. That's good for no one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Any other public comments?
Hi, I'm Rebecca Wood. I am also a resident of Schaefer Road. And again, I did want to thank all of you for your attention to this matter. It was well reasoned, and you represented your votes according to county ordinance and according to how the residents, all but one of the residents on Schaefer Road, felt. I don't think any of us including yourselves, realized what an arduous task it was going to be to adequately represent your vote and your reasons, valid reasons for this situation. Again, I want to thank you for your attention to this matter, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wood. Ms. Wood. Any other public comments? Any other public comments? And there'll be more time, obviously, as we get to those particular ordinances. If you want to come back and visit, we'll go ahead and move on to approval of the minutes. It's been moved. Anybody? Second. It's been moved by J.P. Madison, probably second by J.P. Ussery. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right. Judge's minutes, I only have a few items I wanted to visit on real quick. One is the housekeeping. We had some questions about minutes from the Quorum Court meetings and wanted to make sure I would circle back. There were no gaps I found as I went back and looked and visited with Ms. Patty. No gaps in minutes. All minutes have been approved and properly filed by the county clerk. All minutes are placed online. And in fact, Ms. Patty has done an extra step. She's going to make it even easier for the court or anybody to look for them. They'll be placed on a minutes section on the calendar. So as you guys are looking at the calendar, you'll see the minutes section where they've been since, I guess, 2013 when we started placing them on there. If you need any help, obviously Ms. Patty is available. And again, I want to thank you, Ms. Patty, for again your work on behalf of the JPs and elected officials in keeping our minutes up to speed and on task. There was an initiative that come out of the Arkansas Economic Development Commission called Competitive Communities Initiative. Competitive Community Initiative, and this is Arkansas's approach to helping businesses and investors who are coming into the state identify communities and counties, cities to do business. So they have 4 pillars that they're going to be looking at where they can come and certify that area and say, yes, this community, this county, this city is a place where we want to shepherd businesses that are coming into the state. Right now we have businesses that come to the state, they visit with the governor's office, the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, and they're trying to find, well, where do we go? Do we go to Northwest Arkansas, Northeast Arkansas? All right, once we're in Northwest Arkansas, do we go to Benton County or to Washington County? Do we go? And so this process of looking at this Competitive Communities Initiative will allow them to go out, work with utility companies, work with local governing bodies to say, we want to certify and have you on our list, so when companies come, we have a place to go. So it's economic development organizations, economic funding viability, workforce ready capability, as well as having product and service readiness. So when someone comes and you've been certified and approached by the Economic Development Commission, you're on their list and you become one of those players that they would help bring businesses to your particular area. So it's going to be interesting. I'll be visiting with all the mayors. Many of them have already started working through this process to have the Economic Development Commission come in and help certify and say, yes, you're going to be on the list. So I'm looking for that as we start looking at economic development, obviously to continue to address our growth and continue to have people come to this county because of the economic development and helping drive growth and business here in Washington County. Secondly, I want to visit with is the Northwest Arkansas Crisis Stabilization Unit. Again, we've been identifying the 5th floor of the UAMS. You guys have seen that and read that in the paper, and we're still looking at working with them and UAMS. Last week, UAMS executives from Little Rock, the Department of Health and Human Services and Behavioral Services, I guess is the new tag there, Veteran Affairs officials from Little Rock, as well as the Governor's Office, contacted UAMS to come to visit and tour that facility on the 5th floor. They did that, and we're now waiting on some of their feedback and addressing some of the particular aspects and areas of concerns that they raised. UAMS has raised some concerns, which is, again, what was the impetus for them to come up here and visit. But I think it was, one, a very good tour. UAMS was very gracious in delivering the tour. It was a great tour. It really was. A long meeting thereafter. They gave good feedback. UMS did share their concerns, but at the same time, they shared that they really want to see this crisis stabilization unit come here. So I think that somehow we'll find a path to work together. So right now, we're just continue to gather the feedback and work through some of those concerns that was raised by the varying parties who came in, the veterans, the UMS, Department of Health and Human Services. Roads and bridge update. Again, Dye Creek Bridge, I mentioned last month we would start construction. Well, now it's well under construction, and that's going to be a great bridge. And again, we're anticipating being open before Labor Day. Blue Springs Road, we have pre-bids openings today, and then we'll have final open bids or closing of bids next week. So we'll go ahead and get Blue Springs Bridge going. And again, we're anticipating having that bridge open before Labor Day. In fact, I think it's going to be probably considerably sooner than Labor Day with the Blue Springs. Brush Creek, we still have engineers and permitting that we have to do on that one, and so that's still in process. But again, we've anticipated that being late spring that we'll have Brush Creek Bridge going and open. Lastly, I want to just visit with something that's hit the news and pretty much hit all of us in our homes with this vicious dog attack and the young boy. I guess it's now been a week and a half now. We have been in contact and working with the sheriff's office, working with the dog owner. Currently, the dog is being held in our animal shelter, our Washington County Animal Shelter. We'll maintain custody of that dog until pending the outcome of the owner's appeal of the dangerous dog designation by the sheriff's office. So we still have it, and we'll continue to hold that until the pending appeal that they placed because they're interested in getting their dog back. That's the end of my judge's report. J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Judge. I just had a question about the crisis stabilization unit and what were our backups for the 5th floor.
We have a couple of ideas that we're looking at, again, either looking at building afresh. We got some other buildings that we're repurposing possibly in case we need to. Again, we don't want to go that far in until we understand what's going to happen with UMS, but we are looking at some backups.
Well, I'll just say that sort of just following it from basically what's been in the papers, the county's not looking great in how this is coming across, because I think we all agree, and J.P. Maxwell's work to get a CSU here is so important. And I don't want to do anything that would risk losing it from our county going somewhere else. But UAMS has a lease on that. I know there are questions about that lease and all that, but they still have a lease. And UAMS is vital to the economy of Northwest Arkansas. I mean, the services it's providing. And so for it to come across in the newspaper like we were telling UAMS, it's my way or the highway, that's not good. And so I want it to come across, at least, that we are working to save the CSU, to put it in a place where everybody's happy, and that we're not bossing around other entities in our community that do good for the community. I think we need to respect the fact that there's a lease. And certainly if UAMS said we don't have plans for the 5th floor, we think that's a great place for it, that's perfect. But they're saying they have plans for it. And so I hope very much that the judge, that you are working to try to find some backup plans, because I do not want J.P. Maxwell's and everyone else's work on this to be for naught. Sure. We need that CSU here. I think the sheriff would agree. I know Judge Beaumont would agree. There's a lot of people who've worked really hard on it. And I just think if we do things to jeopardize it, it could very quickly go somewhere else. So I appreciate you working.
We're working hard. We'll continue to work hard on that. Thank you. That's the judge's report. So we'll go ahead and kick off. J.P. Harbison, item number 7.
All right. On item number 7, there are some decisions, I think, that need to be made before we bring this for ratification. And I have some... I came and I talked with you, and I talked with Judge Wood and Carl Gales and Brian Lester came in also for the conference, because when I have an idea, I don't want to blindside somebody with that idea. And this is what I discussed with them. And I also learned some information when I was discussing this, because I asked Mr. Lester if he had used the Tower case as a precedent in his case, and he told me no, which really, after I left, I realized that this was an important decision. And I'm not attacking Mr. Lester. I'm just saying that these are some things that happened. I think he's doesn't have the experience that an experienced lawyer would have. I would like to table this. Okay.
All right.
Let me finish first. Let me finish first, then, because it's up to this court what we do. I would like to table it, and I would like for an outside attorney to look at this and see if it should be appealed, because I have been told by another attorney once a case goes to circuit court that you can't add other items to that case to prove your point. Now, I'm not an attorney. I do not know if you can do that or not. But I would like for the court to appropriate the money to let an outside attorney, and I have a preference of attorney. I would like John Everett to do it, if at all possible. So, that's going to be a few bucks. So I'm going to make a motion that we table this and appropriate the money for John Everett to look at this appeal to see if it's worth appealing or not. So, okay, I've made my motion, so.
I withdraw my second.
You withdraw it? Okay. Okay, what's the discussion then? I mean.
J.P. Madison.
My hesitation with John Everett is that he's representing the individuals in their individual capacities in the George Butler lawsuit, and I think that's a little close. So
I don't think that. Those things are separate.
Well,
this is separate.
I just would prefer to get somebody that's not. And I don't have a preference for who. I just think that made me a little uncomfortable.
Well, I'm looking at the attorneys that have the reputation in this county of being really good attorneys. And, he's up there. If you have another name that would be I think we need to have this case looked at by an outside attorney to see if it's, if we do the same thing and appeal it and do the same thing, we're going to get the same results. And I think this is a very bad precedent for the planning board and for this court, because it basically says that we have no authority.
Judge, yeah.
J.P. Madison.
Yeah. I think actually J.P. Harbison and I are in agreement. I'll give you, this is not my area of law, but I'll give you sort of my lawyer 2 cents, and then I have talked to some other lawyers about it, trying to figure out what to do. As I understand it, we've received a letter ruling from the court, and I have checked the docket. There's no order yet, and so I don't believe we have actually been ordered, so that's why I paused about there being an emergency ordinance on our agenda tonight. I felt that maybe the judge issued the letter ruling knowing that the court would need to meet and decide, and was actually being generous with giving us time to do it. But I think that if we appealed, we would seek a stay of any order, because if we proceeded to grant the CUP and then appealed, it would be essentially moot, because they would be in business and we would be appealing nothing. My concerns about the court's decision were that I believe the court applied the wrong standard. This was a legislative decision, not an administrative decision. And the Bolin case, which arose out of this county in 2011, that went to the Court of Appeals, which was about the Big Red Dirt Pit, specifically said that if it's a legislative decision, it's not de novo. There's deference given to the legislative branch. And I don't think the court's decision gave any deference to what we all did. And I have looked back, and that was a really thorough meeting, and we all gave reasons, and we all followed the ordinance and enumerated the factors and listened to the constituents. We listened to everybody. So I think the court applied the wrong standard, and to me that's legal error that is reversible. I think also in doing so, the court said that we have to rely on professional advice. I spoke with city planners who are very worried about the precedent this sets for every county and potentially municipalities to say that you've got to listen to your planning staff. No disrespect to planning staff, but we're the legislative branch. It effectively requires us to delegate our legislative authority to our staff. I mean, why have a hearing? Why have constituents come forward and say, please listen to us, if the court says we have to follow planning staff because we're not professionals? We have to rely on professional advice. We are effectively taking the constituent voice out of the process, which is the whole reason we have the legislative branch. So that really is troubling to me. I think J.B. Harbison is right to be concerned about whether we can alter the record. The record is established as it is. I will say that it was troubling to me that our own staff provided affidavits against us in a case. Juliette Ritchie, the planning director, who was the planning director during the time this decision was made, and Nathan Crouch, who was the planner assigned, provided affidavits for the other side against the Quorum Court. And then the Quorum Court wasn't given the opportunity to submit any counter affidavits. Yes, Mr. Lester put the entire record from the Quorum Court's meeting in the record, but that's not sworn testimony. That's us just in a meeting talking like we are today. And so there's a lot of aspects of this decision that are troubling to me. I agree that we need to maybe have a second opinion, but I'm ready to appeal it tonight. I really am. Because whether it's everything we can fix, there are some errors in this that I think are appealable. I think the standard applied was wrong, and I think the precedent that this sets for requiring that we listen to somebody else and can't listen to constituents and can't follow our own guidance and our ordinances. And so I'd say that we not keep these people in suspense and vote to appeal it.
J.P. Maxwell.
Just going to ask what to hear from our county attorney.
Well, I think it's easy as an attorney to sit back and armchair quarterback cases. I'm sure we can all sit and do that. As far as Juliette Ritchie is concerned, she didn't work for us at the time. I have no control over anything that she submits or submitted. I don't have a problem with the court voting to appeal it. I think in the paper it said, I told Scarlett, and I think it was printed, I wasn't going to sit here and argue one way or the other. I disagree with what's been said by you about the fact that you didn't think that, or the court, certain various members of this court don't think that I did my job. I can't change that. I couldn't change that as a private attorney. Eva can't change that as when her clients disagree with what she does. That's part of it. So I respect whatever decision you make. I certainly am happy to hear that you want an outside person to do that, given that the county attorney's office right now is down to one person, and that's it. Your antenna case, you had 3 attorneys on it. There was a difference in that case. There's a difference in the Bolin case. I'll say this about the Bolin case. I did argue that in a separate CUP appeal that you all ruled one way that's been rejected that no one's talking about, and that's the marijuana appeal, the marijuana cultivation site. That J.P. Madison was in favor of that being allowed, and so you won't hear anybody talk about that necessarily. But I was told by that judge ruled that in the a difference is, in that case, which I completely disagree with this case, the Bolin case applied to a rock quarry, and because there was nothing in the planning rules about a rock quarry, that there was basically agricultural, residential, there was nothing that ever anticipated a rock quarry, much like a medical marijuana cultivation facility, that the Bolin case wouldn't apply. In addition, in the Bolin case, when the Bolin case did rule, because it was a completely different entity than anything else, the court did note that it still would have had to have held up under the scrutiny of being arbitrary, capricious, and unreasonable. So regardless of what happened, that wasn't argued in that case. No, the side that appealed in the Bolin case, no one ever brought up the fact that whatever was done in an arbitrary, capricious, and unreasonable manner. But again, I'm more than happy to have an outside counsel for y'all to appropriate money for the judge to hire an outside counsel and to appeal this if that's the wishes of the court.
J.P. Harbison, you have a motion. Is there a second, or do we have a different another motion.
Okay, a motion that we hire an outside. I'm going to make a motion that we hire an outside attorney to look at this case to see if it should be appealed. I know some of you want to go on and appeal it, but I just think we need an outside source to look at it to make a recommendation if we have enough standards or whatever. I'm not an attorney to make sure. I don't want to waste in the appeal process. Waste that time if we don't have anything to stand on.
Second.
All right, it's been a motion by J.P. Harbison, second by J.P. Madison. Is this all in favor? Oh, some other discussion. J.P. Bowman. J.P. Bowman.
Thank you, Judge. You know, I think one of the critical things about this whole deal is, like Ann has said, that if this thing goes through, it basically makes us a useless portion in this entire process. We might as well disappear from the scene altogether, because if everything we're going to do is going to be overturned by a judge out here, then our time's wasted. And, you know, this marijuana thing over here, I've already been told with somebody that they think that will be appealed. And so we've got to go ahead. We've got to go ahead and move ahead with the plans to try to either give up this responsibility or protect it. And I think Ann's has got a good suggestion. Thank you.
Was that you, J.P. Balls, or J.P. Pine?
I'm also troubled with. Actually, I'm troubled with our discussion this evening. I'm troubled that anyone has criticized what our county attorney has done, and I'm also very troubled that because after we made our decision, and the landowner and developer decided to appeal to a court, that kind of takes it out of our hands as a quorum court. Was in the hands of that judge. I'm troubled that we have people sitting here criticizing what that judge did in court. So it's not just our attorney we criticized, but a judge in a court, which is part of this process. And I really don't believe that every single case that comes through here that the landowner or developer is going to decide to appeal to court. In this case, these folks did, and it's just in their heart, and they've got a fire in their belly, you might say. They want to develop this and have a little business out there, even though we turned it down. The judge that they went before didn't think we had good enough reason to turn it down. I'm not going to vote to appeal what this judge has done in a court of law. I'm not going to sit here and tell anybody that we're just going to be overridden every time somebody disagrees with the decision we made. I'm not going to vote for any money to be appropriated for an outside attorney to come in. We're always concerned about too much money being spent for this and that. I think it's time to honor the mechanics of this procedure, even though we might not necessarily agree with what happened after it was out, no longer in our hands, gone to a court judge. Thank you.
J.P. Madison, then J.P. Lundstrom, then J.P. Harbison. Room for public comments.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. I have concern about delaying this issue. J.P. Harbison's motion doesn't have any timelines in it that I could detect, and we're talking about people's homes, their neighborhood, their friends, and their livelihoods. I mean, we have the neighbors who'd like to have this issue resolved, and we also have the property owner that's seeking to put in a business that probably would like to have this issue resolved. So I do favor an appeal. I don't think judges necessarily take offense when they are appealed, because judicial decisions get appealed all day long. That's why we have a court of appeals. That's why we have the Supreme Court. Those are the steps that are in place because, you know, a judge could have a bad day or perhaps didn't get all the information he might have wanted. I don't think a judge would take offense at that and should, in fact, always expect it. So those are my concerns with the motion. I would rather see us move forward on this for the sake of that neighborhood. Thank you.
J.P. Lundstrom.
Well, whatever we vote on this issue, I'm going to abstain on it because my son owns such a venue and he would be in competition with these folks. But I voted against this conditional use permit when we voted on it. My son's venue didn't exist at that time. But what aggravates me about this whole situation is we used to just allow the planning board to make these decisions. Then the state, in their wisdom, came along and decided it had to be a legislative decision. So the Quorum Court had to do it. I remember when that took place. So now we make the decision, and then a circuit judge says, no, your decision's wrong, so something else has got to be done. I think the state needs to decide who they want to make these decisions. You know, let the circuit judge make all of them after the planning board decides. So it's just a merry-go-round. But I personally would be in favor of appealing it right now so people can go on. That's why these are always emergency ordinances, because people want to build. They want to do things with their property. Thank you, Mr. Judge.
Thank you, J.P. Lundstrom. J.P. Harbison.
Pass.
J.P. Ecke.
I don't want to jump in front of anybody. Thank you, Judge. I do have a question for our attorney, Mr. Lester. On number one, would you be in support of us appealing this and the information or the evidence on our behalf? Is it there, and how strong is that? Secondly, I wasn't, how do I say this? Being accused of being arbitrary and capricious and unprofessional, and I have no idea what we're talking about, unreasonable, that bothered me because that judge had no idea the research that any of us had done. I contacted 3 venues, and I explained to them what was happening. How many acres did they have? Some had a minimum of 25 acres. And when I explained to them there's only 7 acres of land that was going to be developed, they said, oh, no way. They're not going to be able to do that. And I explained to them the neighbors. They said, they're going to have traffic going up and down that road. So as far as being capricious in my voting against this, I did research. I called 3 venues, and I wrote them down, and they were willing to come and speak on our behalf denying this. I would like to see it appealed because I don't feel that the jurisdiction that, I take that back. I feel that the information that the judge based his decision on is arbitrary and capricious and unsubstantiated. This is a political season anyway, but I would like to know, Mr. Lester, how you feel. Do you want to take this case on, or do we outsource this? I know ultimately it's our decision, but you know your caseload, you know what you have to work with, and I'd like some information on that. And if you prefer do it in private, we can do it in private, but I'd like to know. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Judge.
I don't have an objection to the appeal. The issue with the appeal right now with me is I can take the appeal on, but the rest of the day-to-day legal function of the county attorney's office for the county will take a back seat, because appeals are very time-consuming and take a lot of concentration, a lot of time. There are a lot of attorneys that do nothing but appeals, and that's their entire specialty. So I think at this time, personally, I would be very grateful if the court were to say we want to hire somebody to do this appeal, because that would allow me to continue to do what it is in day-to-day with contract reviews and just the administrative function of the county. So that's my opinion.
Thank you.
J.P. Madison and J.P. Maxwell.
Just listening to folks, I was going to suggest maybe a friendly amendment that we vote to appeal, to use an outside lawyer, and if that outside lawyer would give us a quick assessment and come back and say you're wasting your time and money, then we could maybe vote to not appeal or dismiss the appeal. I think that would sort of take care of it all at once, take care of Mr. Lester's concerns about his caseload, take care of the concerns. But, I mean, I don't want to spend money on an appeal and waste anybody's time and money, but I think we should maybe go ahead and just get this done. So that's what I would suggest we do, that we authorize an appeal using an outside lawyer, that lawyer get us a quick decision to tell us if he or she thinks the appeal is a waste of time, and then we could maybe vote to dismiss the appeal.
That's a friendly amendment.
Accept that as a friendly amendment.
J.P. Maxwell.
Thank you, Judge. I guess a couple of questions. One is, maybe this is for Attorney Lester. Do you have a ballpark guesstimate as to what kind of funds we need to appropriate to take care of this initial? Okay. I think it's probably a good idea if we know how much we're voting to spend, if we actually know what it is. And then the second, do you have, and if this is not a place where you want to voice his opinion, that's fine. I totally understand that. But do you have a feeling at this point as to, we've already been overturned once. If we appeal it tonight or in the near future, do you have a thought on your opinion as to, is this a process where it's going to be overturned again and spend some money in the process? Thank you.
You know, it's kind of hard to say. I think that, and I argued this to the court, the state legislature and the state law gives you the power to sit as an administrative appellate board and just basically an administrative appeal. And the statute allows you to do that. And you know, part of me says that in doing that, you should be allowed to do what you do. The other issue is, sure, there you can make the argument of when you've got a planning board and staff that have looked into things and they've essentially followed what you have told them they had to follow. Here are the rules. Here's what we want, and they make one decision and you make another, regardless of how it works out. I think that opens you up to some scrutiny on was your decision arbitrary, capricious, and unreasonable? And I don't have an answer for you, because I mean those are two big competing issues in my opinion. I wish I had I've sat and thought about this since this decision came down on, well, what do we do if what has been done by, if the circuit court, if a court of appeals were to say, yep, we agree completely with the circuit court, and you take it to the Supreme Court and they say, yep, we agree completely with the circuit court and the court of appeals that this is what happened. And the next question becomes, well, how do we fix that? What can we do as a quorum court? And so I've tried to spend a lot of time thinking about what this court could do to take itself out of that position. One thing is, the law says that you don't necessarily have to sit as that administrative body. You could say, all appeals can be taken straight to circuit court. The other thing is to say, the planning board, we can remove that, and the quorum court can sit as the planning board and remove that whole aspect. You're not required to have a planning board. So, and does it fix it? I don't know. I don't know that you're wasting your time. I think certainly you have some valid points on what happened. And I wish I could give you more of an answer, but I honestly, it's hard to tell.
J.P. Harbison.
Well, I've been on the court long enough, that we didn't have planning, and now, when we hired our first planner, and the general consensus that the planning board was that a lot of people had a lot of resistance to the planning out in the county. So the planning board took on that the CUP or conditional use permits would be used to try to make something compatible with the neighborhood. And so always, because they have always come up with a CUP on all projects. And I don't feel that we are in any way demeaning the planning board by overturning their decisions, because this has kind of been a way that things have been done in the past. Now we're kind of beginning to look at some things differently, and that maybe the planning board would take a more active part in scrutinizing the CUPs. That's always just been kind of an automatic, that they would present something that would make whatever project it was to be compatible with the neighborhood, whether it was or not. Thank you.
J.P. Dennis.
Thank you, Judge. I agree that as the county grows, citizens will want more control. They'll want more rules. As the city, as people move into the county, then we step on each other's toes, because there's those that want to come in and start a business. We heard one gentleman talk about a trucking business already. We've talked about red dirt pits. We've talked about wedding venues. So that, we have to do our work and get ahead of that growth, because I think I've spoken to this before. We're growing so fast that in the county, everybody's starting to get on each other's toes. In my neighborhood, we had one business started, another moved in. They didn't like his business, and there's a feud going on about it, But, he was there first. So I don't know that we can take the whole county and say, okay, you can only have businesses or you can only have agriculture, unless we do it way ahead of time and plan it out. I hate, on this situation, I hate for the neighborhood to have to wait for us to do an appeal process and everything like that. There's always going to be a court higher than another court. I mean, you could tie this up for 10 years and never come to a resolution. And so I kind of accept what the judge has said, and I hate to just string it out for everybody. I think that's unfair to the parties that are involved. So I'm not really for stretching it out. Now that I will say this. Now, Tom wants to not vote. If you don't vote, that counts as a no vote, and so that you're voting even though you withhold. And I don't want to do that, but I also want to also say publicly, where nobody will think I'm a hypocrite, I bought the church building next door to my house, and we're going to turn it back into a church, but we're also going to have weddings. And so I don't want someone to say, well, what a hypocrite. He sat there and made a decision based on that. I make the decision on this based on what I see and what I see and what I hear. And I made a trip down there this week. And so anyway, but not to argue the fors and against right now on that. But I don't think that everything that this court's going to do in the future is going to be taken to a higher court just because we go along with this circuit judge. So therefore, that's my line of thought. I don't see it. I think we ought to just accept it, decide what we want to do on this, and move on. Thanks.
Good. Go ahead.
Since it's a simple motion, it only needs a majority of those voting.
J.P. Ecke and then J.P.
It doesn't count as a no.
Just on a final thought from me, We here were elected by the people to make the best decision for them on their behalf of the citizens. And I believe that, in my opinion, the judge did not take that into consideration, that we represent the people in whom we were elected. And if the majority of the people are against a particular project, in my opinion, the vote or the needs of the many outweigh the need of the one. We heard your voices, we listened to you, and overwhelmingly, everybody was against it, say one, the landowner. That weighs a lot. We're elected by the people to make the best decision for them.
J.P. Bowman.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Judge. What this really comes down to is a pro and con of zoning laws. If we have zoning laws and we ignore those laws, then we might as well not have zoning laws. Now, you know, it gets to be a real tug of war when you're talking about property rights and zoning laws. But if we zone an area, or agriculture, and then we have all kinds of other businesses coming in there want to do something else, you know, that's an issue. And doggone it, I think we need to give some credibility and some preference to those zones. Now, you know, it's hard to say no to some of these enterprises that would probably be very good. But also, if we have laws, doggone it, let's acknowledge those laws and be careful about how we infringe on those guidelines that were given to us by the law. And in my opinion, the zoning ordinances have been completely ignored, in my opinion, by the situation. And to allow the judge to usurp our responsibility, I think would be a problem. So I'm definitely going to vote for this deal to move ahead with the possibility of appeal. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, J.P. Bowman. All right, we have a motion. J.P. Patterson.
Thank you, Judge. I've thought about this quite a bit. And we didn't really ask for this. There's only 3 of us here that was on the court when the zoning come down. That was done rather quickly by a JP that had no one in the county. They were all in the city. Never did feel like it was his position to do it. It doesn't explain hardly anything. But we've been given the job by our being elected and swearing to uphold the laws of the state of Arkansas. So we might as well just get over it and go ahead and do it like we need to do it. Then if it's a later date, if we're going to get out of the zone making these decisions, then it needs to run in front of the voters. You know, if we're not going to, there's no way all of us are going to do what everybody wants, or this room would be, we'd have to enlarge it several times. But we do the best we can, and I think we've given the job to do it. We need to follow through with it. If they throw it out or turn it over, then they've turned it over. We've done our due diligence, and we move on. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Patterson. We have a motion with a friendly amendment to appeal with seeking outside counsel. It's been outside opinion to assess whether or not we go further with the appeal. It's been properly seconded by J.P. Madison. Ms. Patty, let's go do a roll call on that.
Robert Dennis.
No.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom.
Abstain.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Joel Maxwell.
Yes.
Joe Patterson?
Yes.
Butch Pond?
No.
Fred Roush?
Yes.
Bill Usry?
Yes.
Daniel Balls?
Yes.
Harvey Bowman?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. What's that number on that? It passes. Okay. All right. Item number 8, J.P. Patterson.
Thank you, Judge. This has to do with the quarry out by Sonora. They have meetings there for their other quarries as much as that one. There's a couple other quarries in the area that are theirs. One of them's on 264, just over the county line. And they have meetings, and they're meeting in like travel trailers or at best, storage trailers or whatever. And they want a building it's got here about 4,000 square feet. It's going to be used for a couple things, offices. A couple people the trailers are going to leave, so there'll be one building instead of all these trailers sitting around. And most of you probably hadn't been out there, but it's quite a deal. It covers 100 and some acres, and it's pretty well used up. I mean, with all the trucks and the gravel piles, and there's a lot of activity there, And they just need to get this done quickly. So I'm going to make a motion that we approve this, give them their permit, and I just ask that we vote for it.
Second.
All right, we got a motion to approve the ordinance for the conditional use permit for Hunts Rogers. We've got a second by J.P. Pond. I want to make sure that we read by title only, make sure we get that in the record.
An emergency ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit granted by the Planning and Zoning Board.
All right, we got a motion, properly second. Ms. Patty, you want discussion? Any other comments, discussions? Any other discussion? Public comments? Any public comments? Ms. Patty?
Robert Dennis.
No.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Ann Harbison. Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison. Sue Madison.
Yes.
Joel Maxwell.
Yes.
Joe Patterson.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Fred Roush.
Yes.
Bill Usry.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
All right. On your items, going from item number 9 through 15, again, we're going to make sure in the February meeting, the rules were not suspended to read by title only. So we're going to read these this time around, making sure that we read the title in. So the rules were not suspended. Therefore, the ordinances and resolutions have been placed on this month's agenda to make sure we get that captured in the record, 9 through 15. J.P. Maxwell, number 9.
Attorney Lester, would you read 9.1?
An emergency ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit granted by the Planning and Zoning Board.
So this is just kind of a catch-up conditional use permit to cover Flamingo Springs. If you haven't seen that, that's kind of a neat retro vintage trailer campground in Prairie Grove. If you get a chance to go visit it, I think it's a kind of a neat addition to the county. And if you don't at least get on Google and take a look at it. It's kind of an interesting addition to tourism and kind of a neat idea. So I don't believe it has any contested pushback. So I think it's up for approval. So I'll make a motion to approve 9.1.
Second.
It's been moved by J.P. Maxwell, second by J.P. Lundstrom. Discussion? J.P. Dennis.
So, just curious, why is it an emergency?
It's an emergency because so that it goes into effect immediately, so that the applicants who have already started the process can go ahead and continue in their construction process. It's just what this Quorum Court has typically done historically on conditional use permits, because they're building. Otherwise, they would have to wait the 30 days to see if anybody appealed it. It doesn't mean that someone can't appeal it. It just means, as far as they're concerned, they can go ahead and move forward on it.
Sound like you said that they'd already started.
Well, they've gone through the process of having to get all the information and do all the drawings and all the studies and everything like that.
Okay. One point of clarification, too. This was on the February docket, but we did not read it appropriately, so we're playing catch-up a bit.
That's what I just read. J.P. Ecke.
Thank you, Judge. Just point of clarification, this is approximately 20 to 23 acres. Is that correct? It's not a typo?
I know their website. I don't know the actual acreage for the zoning of this. Attorney Lester would probably know that. I know that they also have incorporated a 50-acre lot next to it
Okay.
for some of their additional activities. I'm not sure how much is applied to this conditional use permit.
Okay. No, I was just reading it was 20 to 23 acres in size and currently zoned for agriculture and single family. Just wanted to make sure that I was reading that correctly and that wasn't any kind of scrivener. I mean, that's a nice size property, so I'll be supporting it. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Public comments? Public comments? Okay, Ms. Patty.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Joel Maxwell.
Yes.
Joe Patterson.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Fred Roush.
Yes.
Bill Usry.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
All right, that one passed. J.P. Maxwell, item 10.
Attorney Lester, would you read item 10.1 by title only?
An emergency ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit granted by the Planning and Zoning Board.
This is a welcome addition to the Cincinnati area. I know emergency and response teams have had difficulty, as well as just normal civilian use, having much of a cell phone signal. Out in the metro areas of western Washington County is a little difficult. So we're getting a cell phone tower out there, and I think that'll add a lot of layers to our safety and our fire and police and sheriff being able to use more than just the radios. Have some good things, and I think the citizens are welcome to this. So I make a motion that we pass 10.1.
Second.
Been moved by J.P. Maxwell, seconded by J.P. Lundstrom. Any discussion? Any discussion? Public comments? Public comments. Ms. Patty.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. Yes. Ann Harbison. Yes. Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison. Sue Madison. Joel Maxwell.
Yes.
Joe Patterson. Butch Pond.
Yes.
Fred Roush.
Yes.
Bill Usry.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Item 11, J.P. Madison. Sue Madison.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Judge. Mr. Lester, would you read the resolution, please?
A resolution of the Quorum Court of Washington County certifying local county government endorsement of the Our Pharma LLC to participate in the Consolidated Incentive Tax Back Act of 2003.
Members, you may remember back in February, Dr. Kohler was here, the former chancellor of UAMS Northwest, and this is his new adventure, and this resolution is necessary for the tax credits that he is envisioning. So I'd appreciate your vote. And I'll move that we adopt the resolution.
So we have a motion by J.P. Madison, seconded by J.P. Harbison. Any discussion? Any discussion? Public comments? Any public comments? Ms. Patty.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. Yes. Ann Harbison. Yes. Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison. Yes. Sue Madison. Yes. Joel Maxwell.
Yes.
Joe Patterson. Butch Pond.
Yes.
Fred Roush.
Yes.
Bill Usry.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
All right, that passes. Item 12, J.P. Usry.
Thank you, Judge. This is something, again, that we passed last month. And
Titles.
so could you go ahead and read this for us, please, Mr. Lester?
An ordinance changing the title of janitorial person in the building and grounds budget and reducing $81,360 from salary line items in the building and grounds budget and reappropriating the amount of $81,360 from the building and grounds budget to various other line items for 2018.
Okay, and I move that this be passed as read.
It's been moved by Justice Usry, seconded by J.P. Dennis. Discussion? Discussion? Public comments? Public comments? Ms. Patty.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. Yes. Ann Harbison. Yes. Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Joel Maxwell.
Yes.
Joe Patterson. Yes. Butch Pond.
Yes.
Fred Roush.
Yes.
Bill Usry.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Item 13, J.P. Usry.
And again, this is something that we passed the last month, and this really doesn't affect our budget. It comes out of the library fund. Could you read this, please, Mr. Lester?
An ordinance creating the position of cataloging branch clerk in the county library budget and reducing salary line items in the county library budget by $13,894 and restoring those funds to unappropriated reserves, and appropriating amount of $38,866 from the county library fund to the county library budget for 2018.
So I move that this be passed as read.
Been moved by J.P. Usry, seconded by J.P. Ecke. Any discussions? Any discussion? Public comments? Public comments? Ms. Patty.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Joel Maxwell.
Yes.
Joe Patterson. Butch Pond.
Yes.
Fred Rouse.
Yes.
Bill Usry.
Yes.
Daniel Balls. Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Item 14, J.P. Usry.
If you could read this for us, please, Mr. Lester.
An ordinance changing the title of lead juvenile officer in the Circuit Court 3 budget for 2018.
Okay, I move that this be passed as read.
Second.
J.P. Motion passed by motion offered by J.P. Usry, second by J.P. Dennis or J.P. Harbison. Discussion. Discussion. Public comments. Public comments. Ms. Patty.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Joel Maxwell.
Yes.
Joe Patterson. Butch Pond.
Yes.
Fred Rouse.
Yes.
Bill Usry.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
All right, that passes. Item 15, J.P. Usry.
And again, this is something that we passed last month. And if you could read this for us, please, Mr. Lester.
An ordinance changing the title of Security Analyst Senior Programmer in the Information Technology budget and reducing $87,396 from salary line items in the Information Technology budget and appropriating the amount of $87,396 from the Information Technology budget to the Assessor's budget for 2018.
And I move that this be passed as read.
Second.
Motion by J.P. Usry, second by J.P. Pond. Discussion. Discussion. Public comments. Public comments. Ms. Patty.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Joel Maxwell.
Yes.
Joe Patterson.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Fred Rouse.
Yes.
Bill Usry.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
All right. Items that passes. Item 16, J.P. Usry.
And this will be on a second reading. We discussed this last month. If you could read that, please, for us, Mr. Lester.
An ordinance appropriating the amount of $8,606 from the general fund to the county attorney budget for 2018.
So I move that this be passed as read.
Second.
It's only on second. Are you? So is discussion's been moved by J.P. Usry, second by J.P. Harbison. It just moves on to the third reading in next month. No public discussion. No other discussion. All right.
Was this not on third?
No, second.
Second.
Item 17, J.P. Usry.
Okay, could you read this for us, please, Mr. Lester?
An ordinance changing the title of Veterinarian Technician Animal Services in the county judge budget for 2018.
Okay, and I believe that this was another one that we did last month. Is it new this month?
This month.
Okay. All right, and we.
Second.
Last week we had our
Right.
committee meeting and you guys covered that in
That's
personnel and finance and budget. But anyway,
Yep. Okay. So I move that this be passed as read.
Second.
it's been moved by J.P. Usry, second by J.P. Harbison. Any discussion? Any discussion? Public comments? Public comments. Ms. Patty?
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Joel Maxwell.
Yes.
Joe Patterson.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Fred Rouse.
Yes.
Bill Usry.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
All right, that passes. Item 18, J.P. Ussery.
Could you read this, please, Mr. Lester?
An ordinance creating the position of deputy coroner in the coroner budget and reducing salary line items in the coroner budget by $26,396 and restoring those funds to unappropriated reserves, and appropriating the amount of $36,679 from the unappropriated reserves to the coroner budget for 2018.
Okay. I move that this be passed as read. And I'd like to add quickly that this is something we did discuss in committee, and for the direction that we're going, I think I'm very proud of what the coroner's been doing and where he's going with this, and he did reduce his budget some to make up for this, so it's not quite as bad as it could be, and we're grateful for what he's doing here. So anyway, thank you.
Motion by J.P. Ussery, seconded by J.P. Harbison. Discussion? Any discussion? Public comments? Public comments? Ms. Patty?
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Joel Maxwell.
Yes.
Joe Patterson. Butch Pond.
Yes.
Fred Roush.
Yes.
Bill Ussery.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
All right, that passes. County Coroner, good to see you. How are you? Good. All right. Item 19, J.P. Ussery.
Okay, if you could read this for us, please, Brian.
An ordinance recognizing additional revenues of $16,534 and appropriating additional revenues of $16,534 in various funds for 2018.
Yes, and again, this is money that we got in for a claim on a car, and the Sheriff's Department is wanting to claim the money back. And so that's what we're doing here. And so I move that this be passed as read.
Motion by J.P. Ussery, second by J.P. Harbison. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Public comments? Public comments? All right, Ms. Patty?
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Joel Maxwell.
Yes.
Joe Patterson.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Fred Roush.
Yes.
Bill Ussery.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Excellent. That passes. Item 21. Item number 20.
Yeah, I was going to say 20. Yes, that needs to be fixed.
Item 20.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. Just want a point of clarification. Thank you. Could there be a point of clarification, though, after this? Okay, thank you.
An ordinance appropriating the amount of $2,211 from the 911 fund to the emergency 911 budget for 2017.
Okay, and is that budget for 2017 or 2018?
That was for 2017. That was to correct an error from 2017.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. All right, so I move that this be passed as read.
We make sure I got the motion. The motion, second by J.P. Dennis. All right. Discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. I want to be clear on this. How can we correct something in the 2017 budget when we have closed the books on 2017?
I had the same question when this came up. So because I thought it was a Scrivener's error as well. And we have Ms. Hinkle here. I believe this was prepared by Ms. Farber before her departure, and so I think Ms. Hinkle might be able to help us out with this.
Well, I am correct that the books were closed, weren't they? In
That's my understanding.
March.
But I believe this is putting this in the right bucket for the state. That the state, when they audited, they found that this money was in the wrong bucket, so it's putting it in the right bucket. Is that correct?
Oh.
Okay. Does that make sense?
So you got the permanent emergency management, you got the 911, two different budgets that John Luther manages, and so we're moving. It was, I guess, audited and found that 2011 should have been in the other. No. It should have been the other way? Come on, Ms. Jones.
I think we need
There
to
was
hear
a
from her.
deficit in the 2017 personnel line item budget. The original request for line 1001 was under budgeted approximately $600. Mr. Pemberton's position was re-rated in November of 17, causing additional money to be needed and the longevity checks.
Yes. And it actually references the ordinance 2018-15 that was passed, and there was an error. Article 1 was correct. Article 2 did not pick up that total that was in Article 1. And the auditors did come and say, we need to appropriate this money back into DEM's 2017 salaries, then the books will be closed.
Okay, so
Then it'll be
legislative
done.
auditors have
Yes.
told us to do this.
Yes, and they're waiting on this to be done so they can officially close the books.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so they're not technically officially closed yet.
That's what I'm understanding. They're waiting on me to do this so they can say we're done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second by J.P. Dennis. Any other discussion? Public comments? Public comments? Ms. Patty?
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Ann Harbison. Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison. Joel Maxwell.
Yes.
Joe Patterson. Butch Pond.
Yes.
Fred Rouse.
Yes.
Bill Ussery.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
All righty. Thank you, Ms. Jennifer. Item 21, J.P. Ussery.
And this is our quarterly sweep to correct the books in accounting, to move things where they need to be. If you could read this for us, please, Brian.
An ordinance recognizing additional revenues of $782,117 and reducing revenues of $76,847 and appropriating additional revenues of $790,873 in various funds for 2018.
And I move that this be passed as read.
Second.
Has been moved by J.P. Ussery, seconded by J.P. Madison. Any other discussion? Any discussion? Public comments? Public comments? Ms. Patty?
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. Yes. Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Joel Maxwell.
Yes.
Joe Patterson.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Fred Rouse.
Yes.
Bill Ussery.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
All righty. That passes. And J.P. Maxwell, item number 22.
Thank you, Judge. Attorney Lester, would you read 22.1?
A resolution supporting the addition of a circuit judge in the 4th Judicial Circuit.
So this is a resolution asking the powers of the state who make decisions about how many judges that we have serving Washington County to allocate the funds so that we can have an additional one. Northwest Arkansas is obviously growing, and unfortunately with that good growth comes the negative growth, and our judges have the second largest caseload per judge in the state of Arkansas. So it's time to request that we get some assistance with that. We are a very fast-growing metro area, I think 22nd fastest-growing metro area in the United States. So, again, we're just trying to catch up with the workload that all of the great citizens and the questionable citizens are giving us. So we want to pass this resolution so that we can perhaps get the attention of the state and get the extra resources. So I make a motion that we pass this resolution.
Second.
And that has been moved and properly second. Moved by J.P. Maxwell, seconded by J.B. Sue Madison. Is that a voice or that can be all?
No, it has to be a
Roll. Okay, Ms. Patty, go. Any discussions about what we just covered on the jails? Any public comments? Okay, Ms. Patty.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. Yes. Ann Harbison. Yes. Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison. Yes. Joel Maxwell. Yes. Joe Patterson. Yes. Butch Pond.
Yes.
Fred Rouse.
Yes.
Bill Ussery.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Other business. Oh, great. Got the resolution. That's going to be needed, sorely needed. Committee reports. Let's go around. What do you have, J.P. Bowman?
No activity report.
All right. J.P. Dennis. All right. J.P. Ecke.
Thank you, Judge. Yes, the Personnel Committee did meet, and the recommendations from the committee was forwarded on to the Budget and Finance, which we approved tonight, which includes the coroner's office and
The vet tech.
yes, the vet tech who has special people transporters now, and they're doing a great job. Just wanted to say that to Director Ledgerwood. Great job. And that's it. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. J.P. Maxwell. All right. And then J.P. Ussery.
The Finance Committee did meet. Most of the things we went over tonight were discussed then. The only other point that we talked about is that Mr. Sylvester from the Circuit Clerk's Office talked to us about what they do and kind of gave us a thumbnail sketch. And we're grateful for Kyle coming and talking to us. Thank you. And that's it.
Excellent. That's good. On committee reports, other business, 24, J.B. Madison.
I just wanted to share that I attended the annual meeting of the Quorum Courts Association in Little Rock last weekend. And there were actually some interesting things discussed. We got an update on the opioid lawsuit that the Association of Counties has been spearheading. And I know it's been in the news a lot, but it was really interesting to hear the lawyer's perspective on it. And all 75 counties, as well as the state, are parties to the case. It's pending in Crittenden County, and they're determined to keep it in state court, because if we get moved to federal court, we get shipped off to a multi-district litigation in Ohio, where all the other cases are. And so they were very proud of their strategy so far in joining together all the counties as well as the state in being able to stay in state court. They said it's the first case of its kind nationwide for all the governments that have been suing the manufacturers. But it was really interesting to see what they've done. They've named, I think there's 50-something manufacturers, but there's 60-something defendants. They did name some really bad actor doctors. Their goal is not to go after doctors, because their overall theory is that the manufacturers misled doctors into thinking that opioids could provide a long-term solution, when in fact they can be addictive in as few as like 7 days. And so Arkansas is a little bit behind, as we tend to be sometimes. And so we haven't really experienced the true impact of the opioid crisis yet, like states like Ohio and West Virginia and those that were the first to bring these lawsuits. And so I feel like this lawsuit could be beneficial in that it could maybe help us before the problem is as bad as it gets. They talked about the number of deaths. There were like 300 and something deaths from opioids in Arkansas in the last year for which they had numbers. It's really tremendous, the volume, like how many of how many prescriptions are prescribed per person per capita. It's shocking that nobody detected it. And that's the prescribed that come through a legitimate outlet, not the ones that are coming in on black market from China and places like that. So it was really fascinating to hear, but partly why they want all the people together in one case is to get injunctive relief. That it's not just to get money, but it's also to put that money in places like drug courts, in treatment centers, and things like that. So it really is very phenomenal what we're a part of, and I wanted you all to know that. The other thing was we got a pretty comprehensive report on the work the association is doing leading up to the next legislative session on 911 and 911 funding. 911 funding these days is very inadequate, because as we shift from landlines to cell phones, the landline tariffs that are permitted are much greater than what cell phones pay. And so as people turn off their landlines and move to cell phones, we've seen a decrease in 911 funding. But they can't go to the legislature and just say, hey, give us more money without a plan to improve it. And we heard about some of the challenges with our current 911 system. And the best example I'll give you is this out of Crawford County. A woman was involved in an accident in a remote area, and she called 911 saying, I don't know where I am exactly, but can you come find me? They couldn't find her. So she got out her phone and used her Uber app, and an Uber driver came and picked her up and took her to the hospital. So the technology is there, but we just don't have it. And so that involves transition to something called EZNet, which is a more sophisticated system. They equated our 911 system to dial-up internet, that we are operating on dial-up. And so we need to fund this next generation network to be able to have that Uber-like technology. But then another problem is the number of PSAPs we have. PSAPs are the public service answering points They faulted Washington County for having too many. I'm not sure what they all are. But what that is you don't know who you're going to get. So you might call 911 and then they say, well, you've gotten the fire department and we're going to transfer you to this department. And people complain, not necessarily in Washington County, but generally about getting transferred a lot when you call 911 and you realize the time. We actually listened to a real 911 call about a woman saying their husband was dying and he was turning blue and 911 couldn't find her. And if you all followed this recent story, it wasn't in Arkansas, I think it was in Ohio, about the young man, a 16-year-old that was trapped in his minivan at his school, and he called and they couldn't find him. They couldn't locate him in his car, and his dad found him later. He had died being trapped was trapped from, couldn't breathe. So,
But the police and that actually were in the school parking lot.
Yeah, they just couldn't find him. They couldn't find him, but it was like, Uber knows exactly where you are. Anyway, so the point is that we, I hope that we work on those upgrades. And so you might see a little bit more money on your cell phone bill, but realize that it's not a tax because you're paying for a service. And that's the way they're doing it, and I think they're doing a good job. The last thing I thought was really interesting is we had a session on FOIA, and they told us, which was much to my surprise, because God love them, the JPs are going to try to get the definition of public meeting changed to try to allow 2 JPs to talk. I think that's sort of not a great idea to try to do that, but yeah, so for the reporter in the room. But so we were talking about, what's okay and who's it okay to talk to, and it's not fair that all the elected officials can talk and we can't talk, and we can talk to the judge, but we can't talk to the JPs. And the lawyer for AAC stood up and said, hold up. Can't talk to the judge about everything. There's a case on that. So if the judge is calling or you're calling the judge to try to firm up how you're voting, the AAC takes the position that that's a violation of FOIA because it should be conducted in a public meeting. So just a word to the wise. And the last thing I have is, Patty, can you put up? This is not from the meeting. Oh, y'all can't see him. Okay, well. So we're... my family is fostering, well, I shouldn't say my family, my mom's not helping. We're fostering 4 baby kittens for the animal shelter right now. Angela helped us arrange, I have a scratch right here, if you can look real close. They came to us last week when they were 2 weeks old. We were feeding them with syringes. There are 4 of them, 3 boys and a girl. The girl's a little smaller, but we tell her every day she's as strong as the boys. But they're adorable. They will be available for adoption at the animal shelter once they're 8 weeks old. So it's an adventure at our house. We're taking names. My child wants to name them after the Captain Underpants characters, and we said no. So the point is that all the animals are coming into the animal shelter right now. Puppies, kittens, lots of animals. I have a feeling we're going to end up keeping one of these probably, at least one. My child says, why not all 4? And I say we're over our limit, but just a public service announcement. Everybody needs new animal right now. So. And they're so cute. They're so cute. Y'all can't see them, but Patty put it up on the display for me. Thank you. That's how many animals you've adopted. How many do you have? Yeah, no, we shouldn't disclose that publicly. So I think I might be over in the city ordinance limit.
Well, thank you for reporting about the county associations. This came up to me by a constituent, and this would be a good time to bring it up, I think, because he said. It was talking about the jail or being the funding that we get for state prisoners. And then the question was, can the counties not sue the state for proper pay for state prisoners? So could on the county association thing, you said that they were suing for something there. Drug. Okay, so why could we not do that on the funding for the jail? Or could it be done?
I won't go in that.
I think the state can't be a defendant in its own courts, so they have immunity. But I think they've made that really clear lately in some recent decisions that they can't be sued. But it did remind me that they did add some funding in the fiscal session. They upped the annual funding for jails, so it's not going to mean more money to us, but it will mean we get our money faster. So
like $4 million.
Yeah, it's like additional $4 million.
That still leaves us short. It doesn't matter if it's
definitely
faster.
short. It's definitely short. Yep, continues to be a problem for every county in the state.
Well, I've heard us talk about this for years, and it seems to me that we need to find a solution. Can't keep going, and we need more money for the prisoners, state prisoners. I just don't understand why the state representatives don't help us on this. Just want to go down on the record.
Well, let me get J.P. Harbison down. Come to J.P. Hussery because there's discussion going on with the state legislators. Go ahead, J.P.
One question for Jay. How many pretrial people do we have today?
I have looked. I think you can answer in about 2 minutes.
J.P. Hussery, while he's looking.
I've been working on this, and I urge everybody here to contact their state representatives and let them know. I've got contact in Little Rock over the next few months. I'm going to work desperately on this. We definitely have their attention. I'm going to find the right person to talk to, and we're going to do everything we can do, and I'm doing everything possible to get this on next year's legislative session.
That's right.
And so if y'all have any ideas or anything that I have been working on, I'll continue to work on it. And we'll do all we can to get this resolved. Thank you.
And they have called. They said, who's just J.P. Hussery? He's one of our...
He's got our number.
You got the number, Jay?
344 right now.
344.
344 times 64? A day?
They only had 30. Then cut in half because we only get half of that. J.P. Bowman.
Thank you, Judge. We talked about a few minutes ago about the UAMS situation up there. I think any of you really know some details about that lease to UAMS. It's a 40-year lease for $1 per year. They sublet one portion of that for about $100.50 a year that went into their funds. There's a large part of that lease that is totally ignored and not utilized. There's millions of dollars worth of merchandise there that have been totally unused. Initially, they even resisted allowing us to use the building that was totally vacant to put the Veterans Administration facilities into. And, I understand they may have some plans for that facility, but we have a great deal of need here to serve those people in there with emotional and mental health situations. And so I just think we need to persist. Even though the paper was not very complimentary about the way this is being handled, I just have to say that from what I've been able to learn about this situation, UAMS has not been very cooperative in trying to work out a good solution on this thing. So I'd commend our personnel for continuing to pursue this situation and put some heat on those guys to work with us on getting that facility set up for these people as soon as possible. Thank you, Judge.
J.P. Lunstrom.
Sit next door to the judge, it's hard to be noticed. I talked to my daughter-in-law about this jail situation. Try to get a bill brought before the state legislature to get that increased. The chairman of the budget committee simply told her, forget it. It'll never get in this committee, let alone out. So that's the man you need to talk to. I don't know it. Chairman of the budget committee. Down there, you don't even get to discuss stuff in committee if the chairman don't want it discussed. So it's that simple to kill something. It's my understanding through her that they increased it by like $4 million. And you divide that by 75 counties, that's a pretty insignificant amount of money. So I don't know how that's going to go. Now, I've had 2 or 3 complaints on my computer about putting this CSU in the UAMS building next to the Veterans Nursing Home. Mm-hmm. They don't want those 2 bodies of people in that close of proximity to one another. I don't know whether anybody else got those or not.
Oh, yeah.
So there is some opposition to putting it. Is that on the 5th floor, Judge?
Yes, sir.
So anyway, those are my 2 comments, but I think if you could get a hold of that budget director, budget committee head, that'd be the man. Thank you much.
And let me just say that, yes, J.P. Hussery has been working hard, and again, the legislators asking what's going on, and we got this issue, and it's not just us, it is all the counties trying to figure out their jail issues. But we can make sure you get to the budget chair for that. The other piece is, I don't want it to go out because UAMS is far better partnering with us now and Dr. McElfish and her staff, they did a great job having those guys come in and tour the place. I think they realized some things when they opened up a little bit and said, yes, tell us, okay, we see, we understand. And they really do want to see this crisis stabilization unit here. I think we also saw a little bit, okay, they are thinking that there's going to be some future growth, and I think that we can find a pathway for both of us, because there's nothing more that I want to see than making sure we stop the bickering between Central Arkansas and Northwest Arkansas and find a way we can help those with mental ills in this area, not just in this county, but in multiple counties around here, and get them to help as opposed to figuring out and fighting between who's got the power, if you will. The bigger piece is this. As long as we're waiting and not getting that built, we still got people sitting in our jails. We still got people who are out there needing support and help. And we have an opportunity. We just got through talking about the opioid crisis and prescription drugs, and the number of prescriptions. It's really extremely high here in Arkansas. And again, we have an opportunity to kind of segue and do something. And the monies that the federal government has put aside for this, I think they've already earmarked $6 billion for this opioid crisis, and that money will have to be divvied up across these 50 states. Well, who are they going to give it to? And if Arkansas is doing what we're doing now, trying to put some diversion pieces in, like a crisis stabilization unit, that becomes additional dollars, whether the opioid crisis lawsuit goes through. We got the right things going. We just need to make sure we got these things in place and we can show some results so we can continue to mimic this type of thing. So, J.P. Maxwell.
Thank you, Judge. I'll just add a couple of things. One is, I think that we are working well with them.
Yep.
And I think you only have to go as far as Little Rock to see that UMS is heavily involved with that CSU. So they're not
correct.
opposed to these ideas, and I think we are starting to find some common ground.
Yep.
We've been a good neighbor to them by allowing them to use that campus for virtually rent-free, and they're able to profit off of it, as other people have mentioned. So I think as we're getting into the conversation, understanding the common ground and understanding how to kind of work with each other, I do think we have a very positive potential out there. I'm not sure what all's been in the newspaper or in the news, but I think we're working well together, and I think they see the vision and want to partner with us. And so I just want to put that out there. That may not be as bad or as contentious as it may look at times. So I appreciate them coming alongside and helping us with it.
Yep. Any other comments? J.P. Ecke?
Final comment. I just think if the paper would write something positive about this county and the judge and these JPs and everybody that's trying to work together, it would really smooth over a lot of attitudes out there and not cause such a great divide where there is no divide, and present a united front to the rest of the country that we here in Arkansas and in Washington County do work together, and we all are neighbors. So that would help out a lot. Hint, hint. Thank you, sir.
J.P. Ecke. J.P. Harbison.
I just want to make a comment of why I'm asking how many pretrial people we have, because this is really, and it's not the sheriff's fault. It's not the sheriff's fault that we have 344 people in jail today that is on pretrial. That means they're there until they either bail out or they get sentenced and then they're moved on. If it was $33 a day, that's $12,000 a day, which is $4.3 million a year. Now, if we're short $5 million, there is one area right there. We need to start working with some people to try and reduce the pretrial people that we have in jail. No, I don't want to let people out that shouldn't be out, be let out. But I know out of that 344, I would like to see us get down to 150 pretrial people per day. I mean, it's a goal. All right, thank you.
Any other comments? Can I take one more motion? Move to adjourn. Second. Thank you for attending Washington County Quorum Court. It's adjourned.